Hey everybody, welcome to my suburban oasis. My name is Soleil and I garden in a zone 5B in mid-Michigan, and we are going to do our weekly walkabout and garden tour today. So let's see what's going on in the garden. Well, the garden is looking quite lovely, if I say so myself. I'm actually really impressed with how it's doing for this time of year. We have lucked out and gotten some rain recently, which has been fabulous because it has really greened up the grass quite a bit. So right now we have some beautiful buds going on these Potomac orange snapdragons, and these were in full bloom just a couple weeks ago, and I cut them back and they have branched out, and now we are going to get a second flush of bloom. So I'm really excited about that. And we have some wonderful geraniums that are doing great on the deck over here. These are some of the ones that we grew from seed. And then back behind that, we have a little lime hydrangea that's putting its buds on as well. It does look like it could use a little water though, so I'll have to come through and take care of that. Well, down in the potager garden, I have to say, I haven't done a great job of, growing vegetables this year. That has not been my strong point. I definitely have kind of slacked off on it for whatever reason. I'm not actually even sure why. It's just I didn't really give it a real go this year. I do have some tomatoes that are coming on, but they're rather slow this year. I think we're probably not going to get a good harvest until sometime in August. So you'll see we have some really beautiful blooms still on these snapdragons, as well as the Kent Beauty Oregano that is in this potager garden right here, and it's gorgeous. We had the Potomac Orange, and then we also have the Royal version, and they are beautiful, beautiful colors. I have to say the Potomac Orange seems to be more floriferous than the Royal variety. I'm definitely going to need to come through and cut back these asparagus ferns. They have gotten quite large. They're probably about 6 feet tall at this point. And they're probably shading the tomatoes just a skosh, so we'll cut those back and give the tomatoes a little more room to grow. The fig is still looking really, really good and growing strong, but still no evidence of any fruit yet. Our pink mink clematis is still blooming, so that has been quite a marathon bloomer. I have really enjoyed that one this year, and it definitely took a little while to establish itself, but once it did, it is definitely a great addition in the garden. This garden bed has definitely filled in. It's nice and lush looking. I will say that the begonia in the lady's head is not doing well at all. It has just not thrived, so I'm probably going to replace that with something else for this fall, and I need to decide what that might be, but I haven't yet. And the little lime hydrangeas are on either side of her back behind, and those are putting on some buds, and we're seeing some really nice new growth on this Rainbow Sensation Weigela right now, which is just glowing behind these barberries. Just starting to open, we have the Pinky Winky hydrangea right here, and I can't wait to see that. Last year it was really big. It does seem like this year most of my hydrangeas feel like they're slightly stunted in terms of their growth, like their branches. I think it's because of the drought. Basically didn't seem to have as much vertical growth this year as I'm used to seeing. Now, because of the drought, I also have not done my burn pile for a very long time, so lots of sticks that have piled up, and eventually I'll get to those. It might not be till fall though. These garden beds along this side are also looking really nice and full. And you can see we're even getting another flush of blooms on this Boom Chocolata geranium. It's such a beautiful color of purple. It's definitely different from many of the other hardy geraniums that I have, and well worth growing. We have a strawberry Sunday hydrangea here that's getting ready to bloom. That's probably going to take at least another week on this one. And it's interesting just to kind of, note the different hydrangeas throughout the garden and how some of them, even though they're the same variety, may bloom a week or two different based on where they're planted. We have some coneflowers coming into bloom in this garden. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep them there next year or not. We also have some pretty daylilies that are in bloom. They seem to be crowded around the hydrangea at this point because everything has gotten rather large. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm looking at right now throughout the garden is what do I want to edit out of my garden? And so I have a couple of hostas that are back here with the hydrangea on either side, and I'm going to take those out just to give a little bit more space to the hydrangea as well as the weigela that is next to that one as well. And I'll probably pull those daylilies or move them around in this garden bed. I'm not sure yet. A little bit more work needs to happen in that particular area still. But if we look down the way here, the hydrangeas are looking really lovely in this garden bed. This is a smooth hydrangea. It is the Bar Harbor Seaside Serenade, and it's just starting to turn that limey green color that it does after it is that nice, beautiful white color. And I actually like the subtle change in color. Again, that hydrangea support that I put in place this year, the cage from Gardener's Supply Company, has been fantastic. I highly recommend it. Over here, we have a Fireside 9 bark with the pink diamond hydrangea. And I think that with the ferns, which have gotten enough water recently to really have put on some height, this is a really beautiful area right now. It's definitely changed. I mean, the lungwort has really flushed out. It's nice and full. Things are really looking healthy and good. And this is the pink diamonds hydrangea standard. And you'll notice on some of the hydrangeas, if I can get close enough, you may notice that we have some pink dots on them happening now. They're starting to actually fire up or change color over because we have had some cool evenings. All right, let's take a quick look at the half moon garden over here before we head into the woodland garden. And you'll see over here, the lady's mantle has really flushed out again. So that's gotten full, and we have the incredible hydrangea happening. And one of the things I think I'm going to be editing out of this garden bed is actually the Rose of Sharon, and we have some beautiful blooms just starting on it. This is the lavender chiffon Rose of Sharon. It's really, really pretty. But I'm thinking about actually removing them from each side and placing these in another spot in the garden and giving the Tian Shan 7 sunflower tree a little bit more room along with the hibiscus now that they are really beginning to put on their growth. I tend to overplant areas and then as they grow on decide where I may want to move things to. So that's kind of what's happening at this point. I'm loving the elephant ears. These planters are really starting to look at their full potential. If that one and the one down at the other end, and they've just really filled out. Still no blooms on the hibiscus. This is the evening rose hibiscus, and I'm actually pretty surprised. I thought maybe by this week we would have some. It won't be long though. You can actually see just how many buds are all over it, and they are big and getting ready to open. So again, we have just that repeat of the lavender chiffon rose of Sharon over here, and you can see that that also has buds all over it. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful color, and I love kind of that poofy center that it has in it. Just makes it a really nice soft color. Lots of new growth on the roses as well with the recent rain. Our Veronicas back here are not that showy right now. They've kind of gone over a bit. So I'll be watching as some new bloom spikes do appear to be setting right now. And I think that means we're just going to continue to get some more color, but we're just in a down period for them. I have definitely been enjoying some blueberries off of this blueberry shrub here. It's been fantastic, as well as some raspberries from the garden. I always love some fresh fruit and vegetables just when you walk outside and grabbing a snack. It's so nice. You can just see how different it looks when the grass is green and things look so much more full and lush. Everything's pretty happy right now. I have come through here and actually edited one hosta out of this garden bed, and I will be taking the other one out of here as well. Again, just kind of doing my editing in preparation for fall planting and thinking about where some things are going to be moving throughout the garden bed in the coming months. I wonder how many of you actually do similar things to that. Like, do you play hopscotch with your plants where you begin to move things about and decide that as a result of planting something, you need to move something, and that means you need to move something else, and so then you have to shift 3 more plants. We have our scabiosa coming back into bloom again, a nice flush of that beautiful purple color, and that has just been a really nice addition to these garden beds. And just look at that pinky winky. That standard is going to be gorgeous. And the Hakona chloegrass is looking fantastic for this time of year. It really is. I found a tree frog out here the other day. We had a rabbit. We've been having lots and lots of different wildlife. It's been really fun. Everything's just looking so nice and lush, and I just love the look of the spilling over of the plants along the edge of the rocks. You kind of get a little peek of the rocks along the edge. We have the striptease hosta here with the pink fizz tiarella that's blooming again. I just love that little pink fizz. Then we have some painted ferns tucked in there as well with some heuchera. So many fun things all together. And this nice fresh flush of growth on the pulmonaria is happening. Remember, we treated this for some powdery mildew recently, and it's coming back really nicely. This Virginia has looked great all season. The Brunera is looking good as well. The Astilbe is starting to go over. We have a little bit of bloom left on that, but definitely getting towards the end of its bloom cycle. And we're finally starting to get some buds on this rose, which is Grandma's Blessing. And I really do love, they have a beautiful pink flower on them. I did come through and plant one of the clearance Bobo hydrangeas that we got right here in front. They are a nice smaller size but wide hydrangea, so hopefully it'll do well here. We will see. And the little hottie hydrangea that I have in this garden bed is really thriving now, looking so much better than it was earlier this season when it was surrounded by the foxglove. Sometimes you just have to give things room to grow. I'm guilty of overplanting many times. This is another one of the little hottie hydrangeas over here. And so these were just planted last year, and they are a new type of hydrangea that is a panicle variety that is out, and I'm looking forward to seeing them bloom. They'll probably bloom later than they normally do just because of the fact that I just planted them last year. Look at this dahlia. I just have to show it to you. It's my favorite one. Isn't that gorgeous? These pool planters have definitely filled out really, really well. And our Cape Lookout hydrangeas that are back here are doing pretty good. They continue to need to have some supplemental water right now because they've only been in place for, you know, a couple of weeks. I think the one on the left has been in for about a week, and the one on the right, or excuse me, for about 3 weeks, and the one on the right for about 1 week. And the ferns are doing great here. This one we just moved and planted. It was in the way back garden and wasn't getting enough water, and the soil was rather heavy, so I think it's going to be much happier here. And I'm really loving that combination. This pathway is so nice to follow. Right now we have just that bright chartreuse color of the August moon hostas, and they have all these beautiful white blooms on top of them. And it just is a really nice rhythm and repetition that comes along the edge of this. The August moon hosta, we have the autumn frost hosta, and then we have the curly fries hosta. And that's just repeated all along the edge of this border, along with the mahogany monsters tucked in there. Just kind of draws you along from one area to the next. Our firelight hydrangea over here is looking beautiful. It's definitely opening up really well, and it looks so gorgeous with the salvia and the hosta blooms, doesn't it? The bumblebees are just all over this salvia all the time. So many pollinators on that one. The pieris that we planted in here is doing really well. It seems to be happy in its new spot. And as we come over here, one of the things that I'm probably going to be changing out is this soapwort, because as you can see, it gets rather leggy and starts to splay out from the center, so we'll be taking that out. I'll probably plant that in the way back where there's more sunshine. And then we have a little lime that's budding up here. The little lime hydrangeas are some of the later ones to bloom, and then the limelight is usually the very last. You can see we have some pretty daylilies right now. We have the storm shelter here, which is this deep, dark, ruffled daylily. And that one's blooming by the rhythm of my heart, which is a lighter color, but it's almost the opposite and echoes the same colors. So you have the dark on the inside and the light on the outside. You can see the hydrangeas that are starting to bloom are really glowing in the light these days. It's absolutely beautiful. Now I did come through this garden bed and deadheaded the daisies, and I'm starting to see that they are putting on some nice new little buds. You can look down at the tips of them and just see these little teeny tiny buds that are getting ready to start. So here's another good example. This is a firelight that hasn't opened up yet, but you saw the one we just recently looked at that was almost fully open. So just being in a different spot with different sun and different surroundings will create a slightly different bloom time. The Roseanne geranium, this is all just one. Again, it's probably spread about 8 feet across, all the way from that arborvitae to behind this barberry. And it's just spreading itself and speckling itself all over that border, and it's so pretty. And we have the quick fire hydrangea over here that has opened up. And our Pugster blue butterfly bushes here are putting on their buds. So I think these are still a bit behind their normal schedule, but definitely getting ready to bloom. So I'm really excited to see those. I'm hoping they will bring in even more butterflies. We've seen some so far this year, but not as many as usual so far. Yeah, we're just starting to get a few new blooms on this daisy here. And the cannas over here are doing great. I actually think we're getting close to them blooming. These are the Pretoria variety. We have had some Japanese beetles in the garden, so you'll see some damage from those. But overall, I think they look really great, and I just love the stripes on them. So gorgeous. We'll just look over through here as the sun filters through those hydrangeas. You see that glow. So pretty. So the large hydrangea right here is the Strawberry Sunday. It's the biggest one I have in my garden right now because it is, gosh, it's probably about 6 years old now. And it's really, really well established, and it's absolutely beautiful. But this one, again, I've noticed the stems on it are much stronger this year, a little more stout than normal. And again, I think that's because of the drought. This viburnum has started putting on quite a bit of new growth. You'll notice the leaves that are very nice and large and a little bit lighter green. And I came through and gave these a trim, these barberry right here, so they don't necessarily have that new growth little red tinge on them, but we're getting some beautiful buds on the salvias in front of those, so those are going to come back out soon. And this Strawberry Sunday over here is gorgeous, just beautiful. These are definitely the largest blooms I've had on the Strawberry Sunday so far. This one is 3 years old. And I think this is just a beautiful view right now. This little part of the long border has such beautiful colors. We have those millennial alliums starting to come into bloom down here, just popping out at the front of the border. And you can see the rose marvel salvia. Down further, there's some lavender, which blends in so well with the Let's Dance Can Do hydrangea. And the limelight's doing really well in its new spot. I'm continuing to ensure that it gets plenty of water. We don't want it to get dried out, but we have some potential rain coming in the future as well. Isn't that beautiful? Just lovely. And here's that rose marvel salvia that's right along that same color family. That kind of purplish pink color. And the quick fire is also having some of its fiery pink begin all the way up to the tip top. It's still opening, but it's also firing up already. Just beautiful. And with the lavender down at the bottom, it's all just come together really nicely in this end. I can remember just a few years ago when this was filled with Japanese anemone, or not Japanese anemone, it was Canada anemone, which was invasive, and bishop's weed. And I tore it all out, cardboarded it all over, and replanted. All right, the fountain gardens over here are looking really bright and light as well. The gorgeous hydrangea that is the berry white one is amazing. It's almost fully open, but we still have that limey color along with the white. And it has probably more and bigger blooms on it than I have ever seen. So I'm really excited to see this one go this year. And so many daylilies going all at the same time. Now this strawberry Sunday hydrangea, you can see that one is not as far along as the one we just looked at. Even though it still gets full sun, it has some protection from the fountain and the other shrubs from the south. Our limelight planters are looking gorgeous. Our urns here that we planted up. Really enjoying having those. It's just been a fantastic addition to the summer garden. And of course the Incredibles. You can't go wrong with Incredibles. They always look beautiful, don't they? They're a little bit floppy this year, but next year will be their third year, and so I think they will continue to firm up a bit. Well, you guys, why don't we head into the front garden and take a look there and see what's going on. Well, here we are just through the gate, and we still have our liatris hedge going full, strong, and beautiful. And we now have, just highlighting alongside of those liatris, the strawberry Sunday hydrangea here that is also looking amazing. I feel like this part of the garden has really started to fill out and feel more like a garden than just kind of some plants. And we have the beautiful PG hydrangea standard right there. And that one is also beginning to put on some pink. And it's beautiful. So that's all looking really nice. And then when we come over here, the sun is just shining on our coneflowers, and they are just lighting up the garden now. It is beautiful. And we have some phlox that are in bloom. These are the Laura phlox. And most of the time the deer eat those right off, so we don't get the blooms very well out here in the front garden, but there happens to be some blooming today. And you can see how well they go with the coneflowers, just that same family color tone. And here are some others back here that you can see they have eaten the tops off of. The pollinators and the birds just love these coneflowers, both for their pollen as well as for their seeds. And they are suddenly in just full glorious bloom. You'll see we even have some mums that are starting to bloom at the base down here. This garden bed is also filling up with the coneflower blooms. definitely much lighter and brighter. And the Millennium Alliums are just starting to bloom in this garden bed. We planted some Gara out at the front of this garden bed this year, and it is really starting to flush out. It's really loving the sun. As we hop over to the front sun garden bed, I'm going to let you know that we are only going to get so close because in the weeping cherry is where the bald-faced hornet nest was that stung me, and I have some pretty significant allergies to bee stings, and my husband actually is, well, he's even more allergic. So we haven't mowed the lawn right over here, and this is pretty much about as close as I'm going to get today, so sorry about that, but I think it's close enough still to see the beauty and really enjoy what's happening in this bed. The Bobo hydrangeas are what we see with that beautiful bright white in front of the barberries today. And you can see that the sedum autumn joy are starting to put on their buds. We have the powwow wildberry flowers, as well as some Millennium Allium. And the dreamland geraniums on the edge are also contributing to this beautiful scene. A couple of liatris are right there near the oak leaf hydrangea. But it's so, so beautiful. I'm really, really enjoying this garden bed right now. There's something so magical about the Bobo hydrangea and the teeny tiny blooms that just end up covering and smothering the plant. And yet it is such a reliable and tough performer in the garden. I definitely recommend it to folks. You can see I was actually trimming the weeping cherry when I got bit, so I left the stems out here and just kind of ran after that. So we have those just kind of left there, but the oak leaf hydrangea is looking really beautiful on this side. And you can see that we have the beautiful daisies right here, which are still looking gorgeous. These are again the goldfinch daisies, and they are very, very fully in bloom at this point. And just so fluffy. I love that look. They're much lighter color now that most of them are open, but I see that we're still getting some nice fresh blooms as well. Now, someone asked me if during a tour I could show you, how this bed was coming along in terms of the compost, and really there's not much to see. Everything is, under the mulch, it stays nice and moist down in there, and you look down in here and you can see a little bit of the paper bags that I used to line it, but all of the grass is dead, so it's down to the ground now, and it's ready to be planted whenever I am. So I'm just going to wait for a little bit cooler weather before we do anything in that particular garden bed. But it's definitely come a long ways and it is ready to go. So I'm thrilled with the progress on it, and we'll definitely take you along for the journey as we begin to plant it up this fall. Maybe even sooner than that. We might throw one of our clearance plants in that garden bed that we have sitting out here. Well, the front porch is still looking nice and lovely, and the hydrangeas and the hostas, everything's just filled out so nicely at this point in the garden. It's been great. Over here we have some liatris as well. I do have some plans in this garden bed to kind of fill it out in maybe a different way. I would like to add a little bit more height on this corner of the house. Something maybe that's not going to get in the way of the views from inside the house. But I'm just still trying to work on some of the layers in this particular garden, which is why we planted the pyrus out here just recently, because that will help to add, you know, some height and layers in the garden. The only real strong height in here right now is the Japanese maple, which is absolutely gorgeous, but it's just one thing. And the pyrus we planted is looking great. The fun thing about pyrus is that they have these beautiful shiny leaves. There's not a lot of plants that, you know, we have in our area that have beautiful shiny leaves. Most of them are fairly matte. And to be shiny and evergreen is pretty amazing. And to flower, I mean, it's great. Definitely have some loveliness happening in this garden bed, and I did finally come through and do some trimming. Look just how blue this blue shadow fothergilla is this year. So I did come through and get the low growth sumacs kind of trimmed a little bit back, which has resulted in being able to actually see a little bit better what's happening in this garden bed, right? We have this Weigela over here, and then back behind it we have this new PG hydrangea that I just planted last fall, which looks like it's still got a few little buds on it that are gonna happen this year. And that was just grown from a cutting, so I'm glad to see it doing well. And then on either side of the barberry is that low growth sumac that I just kind of trimmed back so you can actually see the differences in the height and what the structure in this garden bed will kind of look like eventually, because everything's definitely going to be different heights. There will be not this kind of monochromatic one level look back here anymore. And I do look forward to that. The verbena has really filled out, you guys. Isn't that fun? Such a beautiful scene to look through that verbena right back to the bird bath, isn't it? Creates a little vista right here, along with that gorgeous blue lobelia. And then this is the area that I still have a bit of work to do in, and I think this is where we're going to put some of that hypericum that we got. So that should be fun to plant over here and kind of replace some of this geranium, which it's a little bit too sunny for it. You know, it's a decent ground cover, but during the summer it always gets a little bit sickly looking, so it's not the best spot for it. We can find something better, right? Well, everybody, I do hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of the garden today. I hope you're enjoying some time out in your garden, and we'll see you next time.